clowning through life without any accountability, discipline, or really any semblance of a plan is my go-to strategy for just day-to-day life. But that doesn't work at guitar at all. So today we're just going to learn some real fundamental stuff that maybe you've been skipping over, maybe you don't totally understand how it works, to really just kind of open up a whole realm of possibilities as far as like songwriting, coming up with like cool stuff to play over chords and stuff. And really, it comes down to connecting arpeggios with chord voicings, right? It may sound boring at a face level, but once you see it practically, it's just kind of like the end-all be-all of how melody is created. So we're going to do something really simple, and it's going to sound like this. Okay, so we have 4 chords, 2 really basic chords, and then 2 maybe chord extensions. And we're going to talk about how those are different from a melody standpoint, which is really just like the notes that go into those chords, and the notes that generally you might want to sing if you were doing kind of like a songwriting thing, right? Or that you'd want to solo over if you're doing like a lead thing, okay? So, I'm just going to start with 2 chords you already know, G major to C major, okay? Now, it's not necessary to know what notes are in those by name. It's really helpful, but it's definitely necessary to understand the shape that allows you to find those notes. So what I mean by that, any G major chord is just a combination of a G, a B, and a D note. It doesn't matter how many Gs, how many Bs, how many Ds you have in there. Any combination of those 3 give you a G major chord, okay? Now, there's a shape. Guitar is an instrument of shapes, essentially, that gives you those notes, okay? It starts on the 3rd fret of the low E string. There's your G. If we go 4 frets higher, so 3 plus 4 is 7, 3 to 7 on the same string. I like doing this where I get the 3rd fret, my ring finger's on the 5th fret, and it slides to the 7th fret. I think that's a cool way to go from a G to a B, and it also lines up your pointer finger with a D. So any combination of these 3 notes will give you a G major chord. Every G major chord voicing you've ever seen are just these 3 notes. There's this one, this one, this one. They're all over the place, right? So this shape is always going to give you those notes. Even if you don't know the names of them, you can really rest assured that you find a root note, a G, 2 frets higher, and then back down a string will give you the octave G. G, B, D, G. All the notes you need to know, right? So we're going to start applying the same kind of shape into different chords, and then combining this with the strumming pattern to kind of do everything. Depending on where you are, you might want to check out my Patreon because it's only $12 a month. You can cancel anytime, and it goes from your absolute first guitar lesson 40 lessons deep into some more advanced stuff. So definitely check that out because I take my time and go a lot slower there, whereas on YouTube I kind of just, as the criticisms come in, as I talk too fast, and it seems like I'm about to have a heart attack from just ingesting insane amounts of coffee, right? On to the next chord, C major. Okay, so ring finger 3A, middle finger 2D, open G, 1B. Traditional voicing of a C major chord, your root note is right here, 3rd fret on the A string, okay? So, without even talking about the notes that make up a C major chord, we can do that same shape starting on the 3rd fret here. Alright, 3rd fret, I'm taking the 5th fret to slide down into the 7th fret, lines up my pointer finger with the 5th fret on the D string, and then straight down. Now again, this is a C to an E to a G to a C, okay? Those 3 notes make up a C major chord, all right? Just back and forth between those 2 chords, those 2 basic chords, some of the first chords you ever learn, and then this one shape, we can start playing around like this. And it gives you a better idea of potential melodic possibilities, okay? So again, an arpeggio is just where you play a chord 1 note at a time, is essentially what we're doing here, right? Now, you may have noticed I didn't just go straight up. A lot of times when people think of an arpeggio, they think of like just kind of like a consecutive up and down type feel, which isn't wrong, but it's really not super musical, okay? That's why I think kind of doing some kind of riff like that really adds a component of musicality that I think a lot of that is frankly missing in a lot of ways that people teach arpeggios, right? So this is G, 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 A, B, D, G, right? And then maybe if you want to mix that up, you don't have to do it in order. You can just kind of skip around. G, 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 D, A, B. And those could be like a bum, ba, ba, bum, ba, dum, ba, da, 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 dum, da, 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 dum. Right? I'm using those notes just almost as like potential things that maybe could turn into a lyric someday. Because once you have the chord down and then you have the melody of how you want it to sound, then it's just kind of like, take personal experiences from your train wreck of a life and turn it into art somehow, right? There's the C one. 3, 3, 3, 5, 7, 5, D and G, okay? Now these are just triads. A 3-note chord is a triad, right? That's why G major and C major, you'll see all the time. It's kind of like the basic building blocks. I think things get a lot more interesting when you start adding chord extensions to that, okay? One of my favorite chords ever is the minor 11 chord, right? Anytime you see a minor chord, you can replace it with a minor 11 chord. So this is an A minor 11. You probably use A minor a lot. This chord right here is just as easy to fret and play as an A minor chord, but it has a lot more depth to it, and I think it can be a lot more interesting, right? So I've got my middle finger on the A, which is the 5th fret of the low E string. My ring finger and pinky grab the 5th fret of the D and G strings, and my pointer finger grabs the 3rd fret of the B string. So if you really just kind of break this chord down, it's like, well, there's a lot going on here. We've got a root note, it's minor 7, we've got its minor 3rd, and then it's 11. It's like, well, that seems complicated. But once you learn an arpeggio for that, it's like, all right, it kind of makes a little more sense where I have like a root note, a minor 3rd, it's 5th, it's 7th, and then I can go to the 11 from there, right? So again, when I talk about the numbers, I'm talking about where those notes fit in its own scale. Again, I get way more in depth on this in Patreon because I don't want to bore you with the details in case you already kind of know that kind of stuff. But what I can do is I can take this chord and then find those notes in kind of like a musical way where I'm just running through it. So this is an arpeggio that goes with that chord, which could kind of open up different potential possibilities, hearing the notes one at a time instead of as part of a whole. I think that's really like the important part of understanding how arpeggios work and why they're important and how they combine with chords to do stuff. So the arpeggio, or the run that we're gonna kind of pair with this chord right here, is gonna be right here. Really easy to do, right? But it sounds kind of cool, I think. We start with the A, we go to its minor 3rd. So we've got 5E to 3A to 5A to 7A. And I notice the fingering is kind of important because it lines your fingers up with the proper fret that you're looking for. Which is why if you ever see people kind of like just shred all over the place, you'll notice that there's a structure that is built into the fingerings that they use that allow them to fly through the fretboard without really having to think about, all right, what's the next one? Is it going to be a C or a E? But it doesn't really matter. It's a shape system that gets developed from kind of like practice like that, right? So, right there, we've got 5E, 3, 5, 7 on the A string. That lines your pointer finger up with the 5th fret of the D string. Go down to the G string, and then the 7th fret of the G string right here, which this note is the same as this note, assuming your guitar is in tune. By the way, rocking out the Taylor 614 today. I love this guitar. It's awesome. Somebody said it looked like a chocolate peanut butter latte today, and they wanted to eat it. Cool, you do you, man. I'm not here to judge. But this note and this note are the same note. So to take that note from this chord, maybe in this line, it makes sense to climb up into that. So I think that's a much more interesting potential line that you can get from that A minor 11 chord than just afforded the usual triads. Right? A little more interesting, a little more, kind of melodic stuff going on there. The 4th chord we're going to use is going to be my go-to F major 7, right? Again, even easier to play than an F major bar chord. An F major 7, you could root on the F right here with your pointer finger, E string 1, ring finger and pinky, 2D and 2G, and your middle finger is going to be 1B. In fact, you can think of this as being an A minor with an F in the bass, which that's all an F major 7 is, F, A, C, E, right? The shape that we can do to learn that looks like this. Same as before. There's major. The major 7 note is 1 before the last one. So 1, 1, 1, 3, 5, 3, A, 2D. That's what makes it a major 7. And then there. That's the patented Sean Daniel lick. Right there. 1, 3, 5, 3A. Then you go to the octave back, and then slide from 3 to 5. Again. It's just a line made from those notes one at a time. That's why it's really important to understand fundamentally how those kind of connect to each other, right? So now we can rhythmically combine all this stuff, right? There's a pattern there. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up, bum, 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 bum. That we can. Same thing, right? It's almost like a percussive way to play the guitar. Do, 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 do. Or if I actually hit the note I'm going for, sounds like that, right? So I think a lot of this, the musicality of it, is really just combining everything. Seeing a chord as not just something that a hand shape you jam your hand in, and a strumming pattern being like, oh, down, 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 up, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and really try to be more musical with it, and try to make just little kind of riffs out of the rhythm of it. And that's a single note interpretation of, they go together, right? So you can kind of practice it like that. G, to the C, to the A minor 11, to the F major 7. And then however you want to do it, you can make it more complicated than that if you want to maybe do multiple octaves of arpeggios. Again, I've got more stuff like that on the Patreon. But or you can just kind of simplify everything. And if you want to, just like take a G, to a C, back to G. I'm just taking that arpeggio and then combining it with another one. And I'm just taking those notes. It's nothing really that complicated. It can take a minute to maybe always try to hit the strings that you're going for, but it's great practice that isn't something that's super far apart musically from maybe what you're already doing. It's just a way to spice up a very simple chord progression. And then if you learn a new chord voicing, whatever it is, maybe it's like a major 9 or something, be like, all right, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. That kind of stuff, all the combinations of that really will make you a better player. It'll make you a better songwriter because it opens up potentially interesting songwriting opportunities where maybe if you're playing stuff and everything you play sounds the same, really just learn a new chord, learn its accompanying arpeggio, sign up for my Patreon because the peace of mind knowing that you will help my struggling career is of super importance for your soul and your heart and your brain, and then just become a super boss. So if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website. I'll talk to you later. Bye.